if I drink enough of this, will I hallucinate? If you're a person who does not like black licorice, you will probably go straight for the spit bucket, just like Lily did just now.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Hazel's Flight School. Today we're talking about absinthe. I'm Lily Margolis.
And I'm Maximilian Girardin. So, absinthe. Why don't we start with, what do you know? What have you heard about absinthe? Like, let's talk about some popular myths.
You drink it with a spatula.
Yeah, the spoon, the absinthe spoon, got the little holes in it. Anything else?
It's green.
It is green. There's actually other kinds of absinthe, but Absinthe verte, or green absinthe, or the green fairy is probably the most popular style and name. Anything else?
It's not real.
It's not real! Yeah, I hear that a lot. Actually, here in the store, people are often pretty dismissive of American-made absinthe. So let's do a dive on absinthe, a little bit of the history, and what it is that we have available versus what you could buy in France or Switzerland. First off, absinthe is an herbal liqueur, but it is not a liqueur of the way that we were talking about other liqueurs. It is a full-on spirit. Most legitimate absinthes are going to be at 55 to 70% alcohol by volume, which is not very drinkable as an unaged spirit. So what we're going to do is try this out neat and on its own, which is not the way that we recommend drinking absinthe, but it's very much important to try it out at full proof before you start to adulterate it. Are you one of those people who doesn't like licorice? You don't like licorice at all, huh? This is awesome. Yeah, so buyer beware. If you're a person who does not like black licorice, you will probably go straight for the spit bucket, just like Lily did just now. This is going to be really fun for both of us.
I don't like it.
It's going to get better, don't worry. So, first things first. Obviously licorice. Did you get much else?
Star anise.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very overwhelming.
Yeah, the star anise or anise, I'm never sure how you're supposed to pronounce it. Definitely some fennel in here. Absinthe has a weird reputation. I was trying to lead you into that whole myth of what absinthe is. Like, I get asked this all the time. If I drink enough of this, will I hallucinate? What's going on with this stuff, right? I heard that is poisonous for you. All of those things are slightly true, and they're slightly kind of befuddled by just the mythology of the spirit. The actual history of the spirit is that it started to get very, very popular in the 1800s in France. And in this popularity, as we've spoken about before, whenever a spirit gets popular, you have less than scrupulous producers who start to cut corners in their production of that spirit in order to make a quick buck. But whenever you cut corners in spirit, you end up making a lot of poison, namely methanol, butanol. People were going blind, people were going crazy. There's a famous artist who cut off his own ear. It was a bad batch of absinthe. Apocryphal, but possibly that was what
it's actually in the absinthe, like the poison. It's not like fumes or anything. It's the liquid itself becomes toxic.
Right, and that's nothing to do with absinthe itself as the spirit, and everything to do with the production of absinthe being done to cut corners. Whenever you cut corners in distillation, you can make something extremely harmful very quickly. And if you're a less than scrupulous producer who's just trying to make a quick buck, you could make something quite poisonous. Now, because it was so popular, everyone was hopping onto it and there wasn't very much regulation, so they banned it. People were drinking it and drinking a lot of poison, and there was just no way to regulate it, so they said, that's it, no more absinthe. That was fun while it lasted. In the early 2000s, the United States unbanned absinthe, and there was a miniature gold rush and a ton of different brands that came through, but they did start to regulate one particular component, which is a chemical called thujone. And thujone is a chemical that is naturally found in many different green and leafy plants. For this one, it comes from wormwood, or I think it's Artemisia absinthium is the Latin name of the plant. And thujone, in high enough concentrations, does cause seizures and is quite toxic for you. The FDA regulates this to be 10 parts per million for the United States of America. The absinthe that you can buy in Europe and just kind of anywhere that they're making it, they don't test it to the parts per million, but it's rumored that it's 20 to 50 to 100 parts per million. But kind of like apple seeds have cyanide in them, you have to drink a bucket full of absinthe to even feel an effect from Thujan.
So the odds that you have a seizure or have a medical emergency from drinking this are very low.
Yeah, you would hurt yourself by drinking the amount of alcohol it would take to do that long before you could get any effect from the chemical itself. The way that you drink absinthe, this is 60% alcohol by volume, which as a white unaged spirit, not easy to drink. We've had a couple of things that were up at 60% alcohol and they were surprisingly smooth. This has a lot of heat and a lot of licorice notes. If you're a person who does not like black licorice, you will probably go straight for the spit bucket, just like Lily did just now. And that's because absinthe isn't really made to be drunk on its own. It's meant to be looshed. And so doing a louche is where you take ice cold water, and I don't know if you can see, but this is very icy water, and you introduce it slowly into your absinthe. It's in a quantity of 3 parts to 1 part. And the reason you do that, 3 to 1 from 60% gets you somewhere in between 18 to 20% alcohol by volume, which gives you a really lovely, like just a strong glass of wine in proof instead of the full-on spirit, right? So as we add it, do you want to pour it? You should.
How much?
3 to 1, but do it slowly. So what absinthe does when you introduce cold water is the chilliness of the water is emulsifying all of the essential oils from the star anise and the other plants in there and turning it into this very striking cloudy color, and that is called the ouzo effect. It also happens when you drink sambuca or arak or ouzo or anisette, and it's really just anise things that get cloudy like this. And in absinthe drinker circles, if you go on the forums and check out what they're saying, they always talk about the louche or the louch if you're American. And the louche of absinthe, of this absinthe, which is from the Leopold brothers here in Denver, gives us this lovely kind of pearly pale green, which is pretty cool. But definitely try that out now that it's been watered down. Oh, put some ice in there too. That's totally fine. So now that it's been watered down, it's no longer at 60%. I'm sure we're not quite at 20, but you should be able to pull out more flavor than just alcohol and anise. Anything else that's coming out for you?
I think the fennel becomes more prevalent for me now that it's watered down more. Before, the star anise was so overwhelming, the licorice was so overwhelming, and so was just the bite of the alcohol. It's not easy for me to drink, but this definitely smooths it out. It makes it more drinkable. And now I understand, even if licorice isn't my thing, why people would want to drink this.
Cool, yeah. So one of the earliest things that we talked about when doing the introduction of absinthe was the spatula, right? Let's talk about the spoon. There are different schools of thought about the spoon. It's a fun ritual because there is very, very little sugar in the actual product of absinthe itself, right? 60% alcohol. It's not really a very sugary liqueur. In order to make it more palatable for people, it's popular to introduce sugar. And the most fun way to do that is to take a full cube of sugar, put it on top of a spoon that's got holes in it, and then dribble the water over the top of the sugar, dissolving it down in there. You can get the same effect by dropping in a cube of sugar and stirring it, but if you're drinking absinthe and being funky, do the whole ritual.
Cool.
Yeah, some people do claim that you're supposed to toast the sugar over a candle flame. You can do that if you like. It will taste slightly different because you're burning the sugar a little bit, but it's not really vital. It's really just sweetening something that's very herbaceous. The last thing that I want to talk about with absinthe is just how important it is to water it down and also to realize that it's not a hallucinogenic. It is a controlled substance, just in the way that alcohol is a controlled substance. And it's not a controlled substance because of that chemical, but because historically people were producing it in a bad way with very little regulation. Absinthe was no more harmful in its current retail form than any bourbon or vermouth that we carry. And I said vermouth in particular because vermouth also has wormwood in it in much smaller concentrations, but you never saw that get banned because it didn't have a bunch of people making it in bathtubs and poisoning other people.
What's the distillation process like for absinthe, and how does it acquire the green color?
So the green color comes from maceration, which is just like making tea. Throw all that plant matter into there and let the alcohol leach out the qualities of it. Now, what Leopold Brothers are doing, because they have all of the coolest stills in the world, in fact, they have a mixture of some of their ingredients for this are going to be vapor infused, the same way you do a gin, where you just distill through it and let the vapor take on the qualities of some of those things. And some of the things are going to be full-on macerated in there. That green color comes from the leafy green botanicals, and I believe that they're also macerating in that anise to keep those nice big things, those essential oils that get all gummy and milky when you make them cold. This was a brief look at absinthe, a little bit of the history of absinthe and the difference between what's available here in the US and what's out there. I highly recommend, if you've never tried it, we sell it in small formats, which is a good way to try it out, because remember, 3 parts water to 1 part absinthe, you get a third size bottle, you're still ending up with a full size bottle worth of drinking, which is what's important.
Thanks for flying with us today. Subscribe to us on YouTube and ask your questions in the comments.
I always said, absinthe makes the heart grow fonder.